interesting question. Do I value my mental health as much as my physical health? Well, I'm pretty skinny. I think I'm in good shape, so yeah, I do value my mental health a lot more than my physical.
How much time do you take out for yourself in a day? Do you practice self-care?
You know, I try to at least, or talk to myself when I'm alone. A lot of times I catch myself zoning out, like in really crucial times of focus, because I just get in my head a lot. Self-care, I don't think I have a lot of time for self-care, because I'm kind of all over the place. And, you know, life is so busy, I don't really just have time to just sit down and be like, hey, here's what I can do, or I should do this. So it's more of me like, I'm pretty much bashing myself a lot of the time. Self-care is not a main priority. It should be, though, because I'm going through a lot right now. Yeah.
What does your average day look like?
Average day. Wake up, go to school, go back home. Same thing every day. But during that time, it's me just thinking about my future, or, you know, housing next year, graduating, my job, how I'm going to support myself, how I'm going to be successful. An average day is me just thinking about the future when I should be living in the present. But yeah, that's an average day for me.
Okay. How many hours do you spend on homework or studying?
On average, probably about an hour. Senior year's pretty easy. It's not that much. But a couple years ago, like sophomore year, junior year, that's a different story. That was hours. That was stressful. Yeah, it's different. It's easier now, but that's because I got to choose my schedule. I didn't have that option like 2 years ago.
Do you feel comfortable turning to a teacher in times of a crisis?
Yeah, Miss Woods, obviously. She's like a mom. Nah, she is a mom. Yeah, that's a fact.
What advice would you give to any struggling student?
Ooh. Any advice I can give to a struggling student? Keep your head, like, screwed on tight, because there will be times where you just want to lose your mind. Talk to a friend. Talk to someone you feel comfortable with. Try new things. It's hard to just say, don't be down, because there are going to be times where you're going to be down, and that's okay. That means you're human. If you don't cry, I think you're really weird. Just, if you have to cry, just cry. No one's going to judge you. And if they do, they're dickheads. So, yeah, if you're going through something, if I have any advice for you, it'd be to talk to someone, because that's how I made some of my greatest friends, actually, is just by talking to someone. Letting them know that you're struggling. The piano. letting them know that you're struggling. They might open up too, so you might grow a friendship with that. Or just take some time away from everything. I know there might be some things going on at home or at school that might be stressful, and not everyone's gonna understand. But if you can find some time to just reevaluate your life, think about everything, and come to peace with yourself and your mind, and try to work on being better for yourself, I think you're straight.
Piano fits and I'm like cracking up.
Okay, one more question. What issues do you see with how our community treats or teaches mental health?
Oh, dude, I can't wait for this one. All right, hear me out. The way the community deals with mental health is complete and utter bullshit. They don't know a damn thing about us kids. They always like to assume and make statistics up. I don't know where the fuck they get this shit from, but it's not true. Okay, let me think. A lot of them say, yeah, we don't know why the kids are so depressed, but they they want us to... Sophomore year, right? You're 15, almost 16 years old. You're growing up. You're in the middle of high school. You have 2 more years until you graduate, right? Why is that the year where they throw the most shit at you? as in schooling, as in where you're going to live after high school, as in just the school system in general. We have PSAT, now you have to take the SATs and the ACT. It's just they put so much on you, but they don't understand that sophomore year is the most crucial point in growing up. You're not a kid anymore, but you're not a grown adult. You are right in the middle, and you're taking everything in. Do you know how it feels to grow up? It just okay. Do you know how it feels to grow up not knowing like what the future has in store for you? Do you know what it feels like to be pelted with your test scores and how you look on a piece of paper, but nobody will ever speak with you personally one-on-one? They'll look at you through a piece of paper with a couple of numbers and letters on it and be, this is so-and-so. Their grades weren't that great, so obviously they're not a great person. I can't let them into my school. People are trying their hardest. Not everyone's going to have the same opportunity as everybody else. Not everyone's on the same level as academic-wise as they are to like art-wise. You know what I'm saying? So what people don't like seem to understand is that this whole school system, this whole life, it's all a game. All of us are playing a game. We are all slaves to the capitalistic industry. We're all slaves to whatever the media portrays for us. So everything they're talking about mental health is bullshit. They don't know a damn thing about what we're going through. Nobody does. I don't care how educated you think you are. You can't just sit down and just assume this is what... No, because everyone's different. You can't assume like a generalizing of people, just one person. You can't do that. So everything that they're saying is just... It's not true. I think, honestly, sophomore, junior year, that's when it starts getting a little too real. But nobody's really there for you. I mean, of course you have counselors, of course you have teachers, and that's true. But when it really comes down to it, when they're screwing up the system and they're just going to assume that this is perfect, the system is fine, it just doesn't play well. It doesn't play well at all. And sorry, what was the question again? It was...
Oh, how do you think your community treats mental health? Or do you see a problem with it?
I see a problem. They don't treat it as well as they should. I think it's mostly because the older generation doesn't understand mental health, because back then it wasn't as hard. Of course it was hard, but it wasn't as hard as it is now. Now there's technology. Now things are changing, and they're throwing in Common Core, and they're changing the system we were so accustomed to. So it's screwing us all up. Now everyone's afraid of if they're going to be successful or not. They have to please their parents. It's just, there's so many different aspects, and there's so many different things to look into, and they don't look into it. They just say what they see, but they're not actually like really looking into it. So yeah, there's a big problem with it, and I feel like there needs to be some more like assemblies. There needs to be more people pushing that out there. There needs to be there needs to be more awareness. Basically, all I'm saying, there needs to be. That's it. That's it.
So how much time do you take out of your day for yourself?
I think a lot of time, like a good amount. I go home. I guess one of the ways I de-stress is I play music. So maybe I'll look up tabs for songs online, or like how to play songs, and that's a way I de-stress. Just like something slow and easy and methodical. Like having something where like I can start by not knowing it, and then my end goal is getting better at it, or my end goal could be even maybe learning the song. Just something where I have a complete finite start and end goal. So when I accomplish it, it's like, wow, okay, I did something productive. That's like how I de-stress.
Next question. What is your high school experience like? What kind of challenges do you think students have?
My experience has been really a lot of fun. I am kind of like, my case is a little special in that I've been to 3 different high schools over the past 4 years, and so I've done a lot of moving around. And what that's done is, I think it's given me confidence in my ability to make friends, or like just meeting new people. I'm a lot more social, a lot less guarded probably than I was a couple years ago. And so yeah, just this whole high school experience has been one of like, and more so especially in the past couple years, like figuring out who I am and kind of like seeing where I want to go in life, and figuring out who I want to be as a person, like all that really heady stuff. And I think one of the biggest challenges that face high school students today is it's really easy to brush off like real concrete problems that you have, and we like don't want to focus on it, and there are so many distractions that we say that we say are good for us. Like for example, like if I have a problem, I can distract myself from it by focusing on my grades or focusing on my clubs or my extracurriculars, and then that brings about like a tangible benefit, and I get a lot of praise, and I get a lot of positive affirmation from other people for that. But I'm not fixing the problem. I'm not dealing with what's actually at the cause of a lot of my pain, and so it's really easy to distract yourself and put these problems on hold. When you graduate high school or even sooner, you come to face these as like a young adult, and you're like, man, I really have a lot to deal with.
So what advice would you give to any struggling student?
I'd say spend a lot more time than you are now on figuring out, like, who am I as a person and what are the problems I'm dealing with? Because, like as I was saying earlier, it is really easy to distract yourself and not deal with the things that are causing you a lot of pain. And there are so many avenues, especially with phones and social media, where even if I'm by myself and like a while ago I would have been able to like have that time to myself, it's easy to just pull out my phone and go on social media. And then that's another source of anxiety and a whole other thing by itself. So I would say spend more time with yourself, spend more time with your family and your friends, and just figure out, what are the problems that you're dealing with, and what are the avenues that you can go about to solving those problems.
So when you're going through a time of crisis, would you say that you feel comfortable going to a teacher to help?
Yeah, I think these teachers in general are like especially helpful because they become teachers so that they can help students. Like they wouldn't do the job unless they knew that they'd have to provide like support for students. And I know obviously not all teachers are that way, not all teachers are the same, but we've all had teachers that we realize that we can go to and in our times of like crisis, and like these are the people that you can trust, sometimes more so than your parents, because they understand and they see a different side of you than your parents do. I know I have a lot of teachers that I can talk to if I'm dealing with something, and I encourage students to build those relationships.
So what issues do you see with how our community treats or teaches mental health?
The issues I see with how our community teaches mental health, it's like, I don't know, we spend a lot of time kind of like, we trivialize it, like depression and anxiety and all these things. We kind of trivialize it, we laugh it off, because that's just another way to deal with it. It's a coping mechanism that we develop so that we can brush it off and kind of treat it as not a big deal, but it is a really big deal, and we'll joke about it, and then we'll distract ourselves from it with our grades and our school and stuff, and we'll never deal with it. So I think maybe us as a community, we need to get together and collectively realize that these are real issues that bring about a lot of real problems, visible and invisible.
So how do you value or view your mental health?
I value my mental health a lot. I think it's really important to me. It's really important to everybody, and I would say I take a lot of steps to try to, keep my mental health in good check. I spend a lot of time just kind of like seeing or thinking about like my day and just seeing how it's gone, and then seeing the things that just processing. I spend a lot of time processing, I would say, and people process internally and externally. I think that, I don't know, especially like within the last year, I've gotten a lot better at like verbalizing what I'm going through, or telling other people what I'm going through, going from like internal to external. And so just really thinking, really thinking about like who I am and my problems. That's how I keep my mental health in check.
So would you say that's a form of self-care?
Definitely, yeah. It's not selfish to think about yourself. It's really like the most important person to yourself is you.
How much do you value your physical and mental health?
I value my physical and mental health a lot. I feel like it's very difficult to perfect or get your mental health like stronger, but I feel like physical health, you can always work out, you can always run. There's always things that you can do to get yourself in better shape. But with mental health, what's tricky about it is that it's always like internal, and you can't really, if you're feeling like down or you're feeling, upset about something, there's not really much you can do besides just eat a lot of ice cream or watch, Friends or something on Netflix.
So do you value your mental health as much as your physical health?
In my opinion, I value my physical health more so because, like I said, like mental health is not exactly tangible, so it's not exactly something that you can work on directly. So I like to worry about things I can work on directly, which is my physical health.
What is your high school and academic experience like?
Okay. My high school experience was pretty interesting. I thought it was going to be, honestly, like a lot more like High School Musical and stuff you see in the movies. And I like to say, it's not like that at all in real life. It's a lot of stress, but I think that it's not stressful all the time. And I think that a lot of people have different experiences in high school. Some people are stressed all the time because of the classes they take or the pressure their parents put on them. But for me, I was fortunate enough to have parents that didn't put too much pressure on me. The pressure I got was usually through myself, and the stress I got was usually because I procrastinated or whatever it was. But I would say my high school experience was mostly very positive. High school is one of those things that over time you love to hate it. And I guess I hated it for a long time, and I guess now I'm a senior, I'm old and I'm wise, I learned to love certain things, and you look back on it and you usually just remember the things that you enjoyed more than the things you hated. So
what advice would you give to any struggling student?
Struggling with what?
Perhaps struggling with their academics, maybe just struggling with their mental health, maybe.
To a struggling student, I'd say talk to someone. I feel like I see a lot of kids, walking around by themselves at lunch or whatever, and I always feel so bad because I know, like me personally, I do have a strong friend group, and I always felt like if it wasn't for them and if I was, like just like a wanderer by myself, it would be really difficult to get out of that sort of, I don't want to say mental rut, but that, that hardship of being secluded. And overall, friends make things better. You could share your pain or your angst with other people, and it kind of lessens the burden for yourself.
Do you feel comfortable turning to a teacher in times of a crisis?
It depends what kind of crisis it is. If it's, I left a piece of paper that I needed in class or something, then yeah, I'd definitely go talk to the teacher. But if it was something about my mental health, or something going on at home, no, I wouldn't trust a teacher.
And why wouldn't you?
I wouldn't trust. The problem with teachers is that they say they care, and sometimes they do care, but at the end of the day, it's not really their problem. And myself personally, I don't like putting my problems on other people. And also, teachers are not really your friends, and even then, they're just, at the end of the day, they're getting paid to be here. And if there was something really wrong that was really bothering you, they would have to report it to somebody. And sometimes kids just need to let things out, and they don't want to get reported or get in trouble or be looked down upon in class.
So what issues...
I feel like I can redo that question again later.
You can, yeah.
Okay.
We'll just move on.
All right.
What issues do you see with how our community treats or teaches mental health?
I feel like I remember like a big portion of my, like when I was younger, mental health and like depression, for example, it was just something I heard about all the time. I didn't really know much about it, but I just remember like seeing on like the commercials for like antidepressant drugs and stuff like that. And I feel like nowadays it's in the media. There's a lot more people like coming out, and mental health has become a really big thing now. People are a lot more understanding of people that have mental health issues. But I do feel like the reason why is because there's been just so much backlash against people that are not very accommodating to people that have mental health issues. And I feel like because of that backlash, people are now being forced to sort of care more. That doesn't mean that they do care more, but that they're being forced to care more about mental health issues.
So what steps do you think we could take to improve or make mental health more of an open topic to discuss?
I think just talking about it more naturally, honestly, teachers, I feel like a lot of times they're forced by whoever, like their bosses or the district or whatever, to talk about mental health in class, and sometimes they don't really take it seriously, like, oh, if you're feeling depressed, just come talk to me, it's no big deal. But there are kids in the class that maybe they are feeling that way, but like I said, they don't trust the teachers like I do. And so I feel like if the teachers were more educated on mental health issues and being more natural with the students about it, I think that it would make it easier for the students to come out of their shells, and it would open up more dialogue and stuff like that.
Okay, so we're going to go back to the old questions.
Okay.
Do you feel comfortable turning to a teacher in times of a crisis?
I don't feel comfortable turning to teachers in times of crisis because they're not your friends at the end of the day. They're paid to be there. They're not there to listen to your problems. And even then, like I said, like myself, I don't like putting my problems on other people. They have their own problems in life. They might be depressed for all I know. And they're just here to teach us stuff. And I feel like mental health and school they shouldn't go hand in hand, but unfortunately they do a lot of times. People have a lot of mental health issues because of school. So no, I would not trust a teacher with a mental health issue.
So who do you feel comfortable turning to in times of a crisis?
Well, fortunately, I haven't had too many mental health issues as of late recently. When I was younger, I did have some depression problems because of moving schools and being bullied and stuff like that. But back then, I would try to turn to my mom because that was the only thing I could think of, and it was just really difficult. Like, it was showing my mom a different side of me that she had never seen before, and it just made me realize that it's really difficult to trust adults with certain things, and not just my mother. It's just a lot of times adults, they just tell you to brush it off, and it's get over it and toughen up. But sometimes you really do need to just talk about stuff with people. And honestly, I don't know who I would talk to if I had like a mental health problem. I would, the way I was raised, I would just deal with it myself. And yeah, it's kind of bad, I know, but it's just how I would personally do it.
Okay, we're gonna go back to the first question.
Okay.
How much do you value your physical and mental health?
I value my physical and mental health quite a bit. Physical health, I would say more so than anything else, because I'm going to the Marine Corps and we have to be physically fit basically all the time. But I would say keeping my mental health, strong is something that I also value. I value that I have relatively strong mental health at this point in time, and it's something that I hope to keep going on. Like I said, I'm going to the Marine Corps, and there's always that thing, people always say like, oh, you're gonna get PTSD, and that's like a really serious mental health problem, and I always worry that that's gonna be something that could happen to me later. So I hope to just keep my mental health strong right now.
So do you value your mental health as much as your physical health?
I think I value my physical health overall more so than my mental health, because mental health is not exactly something that you can really work on outright, but physical health, you can always go to the gym or eat healthy. And mental health is a lot trickier because it's not tangible, unlike physical health.
How much do you value your physical and mental health?
I think they're super important because if you don't, you need a combination of both, because if you don't have mental health, you can't really do anything physical. If you don't have physical health, it's a lot harder for you to do a lot of things. You need to have a good mixture of both of those two things. Really important for your life.
Do you value your mental health as much as your physical health?
Yeah, they're both really important just for people in general. Everyone needs to have a good balance.
Alright, what is your schedule like? Or how many hours do you spend on homework and study?
Since I'm taking 3 AP classes, I spend like 3 or 4 hours in homework. I spend 2 or 3 hours at practices, and the rest of that's eating.
How many hours of sleep do you get on average?
6 to 8 hours.
Oh, that's nice. That's good. How much time do you take out for yourself in a day? Or do you practice self-care?
I try to spend like an hour on myself, just relaxing and being open and free, and reading.
Do you feel comfortable turning to a teacher in times of a crisis?
Yeah, I have a couple teachers that I can turn to if I need help.
Alright, what question I want to ask you next? Okay, what issues do you see with how our community treats or teaches mental health?
As far as I know, especially in the African American community, mental health is treated as almost a stigma. If people consider it as if you have a mental health issue, it's a problem. They don't want to help you. They say like hide it, keep it down, don't really pay attention. They focus more on the physical aspects of problems. So people aren't giving as much attention as it really needs. People can have depression and they'll feel like they need to hide it because other people might judge them or think they're not strong enough, when really it's just they need help, just like a physical ailment.
What steps can we take to improve mental health or make it more of an open topic to discuss?
I think we need to start introducing it into schools, bringing up, like, coming into classes and saying, hey, mental health, from a young age, not just starting in middle school or high school, from, like, elementary school, saying, hey, if you feel this way, other people feel this way, it's normal, like, we can help you. Making sure that, like, kids from a young age know it's okay, and going out into different communities, especially minority communities where it's viewed more as an issue that not those communities have, where they think it's mainly like a rich issue, a rich complaining issue, or a white issue. Make it more so known that's everybody's issue that we need to pay attention to.
Based on your experiences, what kinds of challenges do you think students have right now in high school?
I know a lot of students who have depression, who have issues like dealing with the stress of school and feeling like they need to take all these AP classes and ending up stressing themselves even more out.
What else would you want students to take away besides academics? Like, what else should they value?
I think students should value just their own personal worth and know, like, even if I'm not doing that well in academics, I am so much more than my academics. I can do so many other things, whether it's sports or, like, art. There's so many other things that you can do besides academics.
And finally, what advice would you give to any struggling student?
Just don't give up, it gets better. Like, school might seem like the biggest deal in the world right now, but when you get older, you'll realize it's not that big a deal and you'll be fine.
And are there any final comments or final words that you'd like to say before we conclude your interview? Good?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jerica.
I dropped my ring.
Oh,
I was gonna get it.
I didn't notice, I swear.
Okay. So how much do you value your physical and mental health?
I value them a lot, but then I tend to value about my physical health more than my mental health because I like to impress people with my appearance, and then that makes me forget about what goes on in here.
How much time do you take after yourself in it? Are you having a stroke?
Wait, it just keeps going? This just keeps going?
Yeah. How much time do you take? Wait.
You're not even on camera.
Do you value your mental health? How much time do you take after yourself in a day?
I actually take out a lot of okay, let me go again. Okay. Does he need to read the question again?
No, you can just go for it.
I actually take out a lot of my time for myself during the day because right now I'm single and I get to do whatever I want. And I do a lot of
Self-care?
like I go to the gym and I try to improve myself and better myself every day.
And what is your high school or academic experience like so far?
My high school experience, it was pretty fun. I made many new friends and I also lost many friends. But my academic... sorry. Alright.
Do you want me to ask again?
Yes, again.
What is your high school / academic experience like?
My high school academic experience was like okay. I was an average student. I do all my homework and I get average scores in tests. I wasn't like extraordinary or anything, and I made many new friends that I wouldn't expect to be friends with, and I also lost many friends that I thought I would keep in touch with.
What advice would you give to any struggling student?
What advice? Okay. An advice I would give for struggling students is that just keep pushing through and I forgot. Hold up.
It's okay. It's okay.
Do you have to read the question again? Alright.
So what advice would you give to any struggling student?
An advice I would give for any struggling student is just keep pushing through and tell yourself that everything will be okay because it's basically all in your head, and if you can power through it, then you'll make it.
Do you feel comfortable turning to a teacher in times of a crisis?
Honestly, I do feel comfortable turning to a teacher on a time of crisis, especially Miss Bolster because she helped me out before through a lot of many things. Wait, okay, there's a story that she helped me with, but should I tell the story?
Yeah. Go for
Okay,
it.
I'm gonna start over again. Alright.
Do you feel comfortable turning to a teacher in times of crisis?
I do feel comfortable turning to a teacher in times of crisis because Miss Bolster, she helped me out before when this big guy was gonna beat me up. He came into class during 7th period and then he wanted us to start something and Miss Bolster defended me right away and pushed him out of the class.
And how many hours of sleep do you get on average?
I usually get like around 5 or 6 hours of sleep on average.
Do you feel like that's enough?
No, it's not.
How many hours do you spend on homework or studying?
I used to spend around 2 hours on homework and studying, but now I only spend like 30 to an hour every day.
And what does your average day look like?
My average day, I would wake up, brush my teeth, get ready for school, eat breakfast, and then drive to school, and then finish. There's a fly. I'll restart.
Continue.
Wait, restart, right?
Just continue.
Continue, okay. And then after school finishes, I go home. I either go out with my friends if we have plans, or I just go home and eat my mom's food. And then I'll either go to the gym or take a nap, and then eat dinner with my parents at 7:30 every day. And then I have to play the piano or violin, and then if I don't have any homework, then I'll go to my friend's house or something.
What issues do you see with how our community treats and teaches mental health, and what steps do you think we can take to improve?
I feel like they lack teaching mental health, and maybe we can improve that by creating more classes at school. And it'll be nice if we can create more counseling for students who are actually struggling and having mental issues.
Anything else you guys want to add?
Nope.
Okay.
Hello.
You're done.
Thank you for doing this interview. Okay.
Thank you.
Cut.
How much do you value your physical and mental health?
So I believe the physical, mental, and emotional health are all tied together. It's the whole mind, body, and soul. And I think each one of those have to be in balance. And for me, anytime that one of those are out of balance, I think the other part suffers or takes on more than what it should. So it's being able to balance all 3 areas of your life.
Do you value your mental health as much as your physical health?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, the balance. Being able to know when things start to become overwhelming, that you have to find other outlets. And so for me, whether that's exercise, whether that's talking to a friend, you have to create that balance.
What was your high school / academic experience like?
High school was fun for me. A lot of friends. Classes were manageable. Not as much homework as what you guys have today, but overall, it was a positive experience, and it was fun.
Could a student approach you in times of a crisis?
Absolutely. I have an open door policy. I have many students who come in, might need that extra piece of advice, and so my door is always open.
If you were a high schooler in 2017, would it be more stressful than when you attended?
Yes, if I was a high schooler in 2017, it would be a lot more stressful than when I was in high school. Again, didn't have the same homework workload. For me, I think social media plays a huge part. We didn't have cell phones and 24-hour connections with friends, and so I think that whole dynamic brings on a whole different layer of stress for our teenagers today.
What other kind of challenges do you think students have?
I think students today, the challenges are managing the academics, home, and the peer pressure. And so when you look at those three things, I think when that peer pressure and the academics create the most stress is what tends to affect our students most. Although home life does, but I think students tend to value themselves based on what their peers think and how they perform academically.
What would you want your students to take away from school besides academics?
That life should be about balance and to have fun. I think that high schoolers should have fun. I think that as you prepare for adulthood, yes, make sure you're responsible, you get your grades, but don't forget to have fun, because once you leave here and go to college, then there's more work, there's more studying, and then after college, you're going to work for the rest of your life. And so the things that you do here in high school, take advantage of those opportunities to be part of a club, to be part of an athletic team, and to build friendships and relationships that you can take away and have fun, because you have the rest of your life to be serious and to work, and just get the best that you can out of each experience.
Is there any advice you would give to currently struggling students?
Seek help. So anybody struggling, the first thing is you're not in this alone. You're not the first student to have taken a course that might be too challenging, or a student that faced a certain crisis. And so realize that there's help available. Attach yourself to a teacher. I believe every student should have that one adult on campus that you feel safe with, whether it's the principal, if it's not the principal, associate principal, or advisor, counselor, someone that you can go to that will give you that extra support. And so, again, you don't have to travel this journey alone. As adults, some adults here have had the same struggles and can share those experiences. And so there's nothing new under the sun. Somebody has already traveled that journey. And so just seek the help and get the support, and we're here to assist.
What issues do you see with how our community treats and teaches mental health?
I think sometimes people are in denial about mental health. I think that when we say the word mental health, it has a negative stigma placed on it, rather than it being like anything else. Whether somebody has diabetes or some other kind of physical ailment, mental health is looked at in a negative light, but it's just part of the body as well that has an illness. And so we tend to ignore as a society and not really focus on the issues that someone could really be going through. So for instance, sometimes people might say, oh, they're suffering from depression. And people might blow that off like they just need to get over it. But in reality, there could be a hormonal imbalance. There could be something happening that really truly needs attention for someone to have care after them. And so I think we tend to ignore or deflect or just blow it off like, oh, it's not that serious, like life's not that serious. And we don't listen to those who are crying for help. And so I think it doesn't get the focus that it needs. And from my standpoint as principal, sometimes it's hard to convince parents and families that their student is going through something and needs the assistance. There's times when we have students in crisis and we recommend you need to get them counseling. Families don't readily acknowledge that there could be a mental health issue with their child. And so coming to terms that It's not a life sentence, so to speak, but it's something that requires support and assistance. And convincing people to seek that is one of our challenges here at school.
And what steps can we take to improve or make mental health more of an open topic to discuss?
I think you said just that. Openly talk about it, right? And so once we talk about it and not talk about it as if it's a bad thing to have or to deal with, but talk about it and embrace it and show support over it. Students may get bullied because they're viewed as somebody who has a mental health challenge or issue, rather than supporting them in their journey and making sure, hey, you're okay, everything good, let me walk you to E2. And so I think the open conversations and dialogue and education, right? That's a big part. And just what you're doing now is providing education so that people understand what it is and they don't have to be afraid of it. And then those who are suffering from it will be more confident in seeking the help that they need.
And are there any final comments that you have to anybody that might be watching this video in the future?
I would just say that if anybody who is struggling with their own mental health, that you take the opportunity to recognize the need to get help. Don't be afraid. Don't try to solve your own problems when you're not equipped to solve your own problems, but truly speak up and speak out and get the help that you need.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good. Okay. How much do you value your physical or mental health?
I think my physical and mental health is very important. They both complement each other. So if I'm having, let's say, a stressful time in my life, then obviously it can impact my physical health as well.
Do you value your mental health as much as your physical health?
Oh, I thought you just answered that. They're equal to me. I don't think one's more important than the other. I think they just have to work together because, again, if one of them is off, then it certainly impacts you negatively.
What was your high school and academic experience like?
My high school and academic experience was pretty typical. I went to a high school downtown San Jose, so it was fun. A lot of the memories that I have would be things like Spirit Week and stuff like that, and I obviously made really good friendships that I still maintain throughout my life. Yeah.
What kind of challenges do you think students have in general?
Today I think that students have a lot of stress on themselves. I think that I truly feel strongly again, with the social media challenges that students that they have going on right now. I think that might have taken away from the normal, I would say, human contact of conversations and really connecting with each other. And I think the lack of that has caused added stress for teenagers.
So if you were in high school in 2017, would you be more stressed out than when you attended high school?
I think so. It's kind of a hard question because I'm looking back now as an adult, but I think that I don't remember high school being stressful, but I think it just kind of depends on the individual and who their friends are. And I certainly think students today have way more access to things that I don't think I had in high school. And, we didn't even have, let alone the cell phones. We weren't even in the pager generation. So even that whole capacity, it's a little different. And I think those social relationships and connections I think today's generation has to work to really facilitate them a little differently.
So could a student approach you in times of a crisis?
Absolutely. I know that my position is one that people probably don't think of. I'm going to go see Miss Prayer. I'm feeling stressed today. But a lot of times I am here right in the office when people walk in. People see me around campus and, I am a human being and I definitely care about our students and I want them to be safe. I want them to be healthy, both in mind and spirit. So I'm always have an open door policy.
What advice would you give to any struggling students?
Struggling in what capacity?
I would say maybe they're struggling academically or socially, maybe problems at home, things that just would encompass an everyday life of a teenager.
So I think advice I would give a student who was facing some challenges, I'm a firm believer that I would say 99% of things have solutions. And I think that when I work with students, and if they're in, let's say, a crisis situation, even if it's academics or personal, I just kind of like to brainstorm with them and just kind of say, okay, well, what are the options that we could find? Because I think a lot of times, especially in stressful situations, the stress eats up the, oh, sorry guys. Weird. I'm in the middle of filming. That was fun, huh guys? So back to what I was saying. Do I have to start from the beginning? Probably.
You can, or just like retract your
Um,
thought.
I just think that stress eats up at people. So when you get in that moment of stress, you're not reasonable about things and you get caught up, it kind of eats you up a little bit. So if it's school, if it's, even family, yes, you have families that support you, but sometimes with everything else going on, we lose sight of those things. And so just for me, I like to just kind of listen to students and find out how I could give them the resources or provide the guidance that they might not be thinking of because they're in that moment of stress.
What would you want our students to take away from school besides academics?
That's a trick question. I think it's important to just kind of see how school is part of our community and it doesn't end when you graduate. So although you've made those great memories and experiences and you've received an excellent education, I think it's that part of like, I'm still part of this community and just kind of building from that because a lot of times with schools, we just kind of forget that they're there when we go into our adult years. And I think that just understanding the value of community is important.
What issues, if any, do you see with how our community treats or teaches mental health?
Oh, wow. I don't think we teach about mental health at all. I think that it doesn't, it sounds really weird, it doesn't fit into curriculum, and I think that teachers who are very aware of their students or staff members that are aware of students, they make that effort. Like we still don't even really deal with it from a medical standpoint, I think, as a society. So anyway, I think we could do more. I think we're doing better than we did, let's say, 25 years ago. I think we're certainly more aware and we want to find out how to help support people that are finding themselves in this illness, right? This little track there. And I don't think we're doing enough. And I don't know how the school could be set up more. Like how do we work that into a math class, or you know what I mean? I think it's just the way we're handling it now is just kind of teaching us to look for the cues that our students are facing, read them, ask questions, and just being that support. And again, trying to direct them in the right place to get the resources they need.
And what steps, if any, do you think we can take to improve on that or make mental health more of an open topic to discuss overall in our community?
Yeah, I think from the school setting, that's a real trick because it's tricky because for students, they don't really feel comfortable sharing whatever it is that they're going through because you have to have that trust there among each other, that non-judgment. And, I think the fact that we have a place here on campus for students to go to is a great help. I think getting the message out to students and staff that, we're all here for them. And I think that's important. And I think that maybe just having more groups. So like it's, hey, we're having a group today conversation about substance abuse. And maybe today it's about how do you manage stress. I think just maybe having small groups sessions, just because, and kind of for that to really work, it would have to be kind of part of everybody's norm. Like, oh, I don't really have that issue, but I have this issue, or I want to know more about that. And I think just maybe having that venue will help ease the maybe the anxiety levels for everybody about how to ask for help or how to find out or what to do in those situations.
Do you have any closing comments for anyone that is watching this video?
I would just say, remember that we're here to support you. Every adult on campus cares for you. And if you ever have questions about anything, I'm in the main office and we have many people throughout campus that are here to support you and make sure your high school years are healthy and safe.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So the first question is, how much do you value your physical and mental health? Do you value your mental health as much as your physical health?
I never did value my mental health because I never had to think about it until recently. But a couple years ago, it's not funny, you guys. A couple years ago, anxiety really started hitting me, and it kind of hit me hard. I mean, I thought I was dying all the time. Went to the doctor, had EKGs, and the guy was like, "You're not dying today, man." And it's really kind of hit me. But physical health, I'd like to say it's always been important to me, but I don't want to say that in front of my colleagues who know the truth. I just had a roast beef sandwich and I drank all the roast beef juice, so we'll worry about that at a later day. Mental health now.
All right. What was your high school or academic experience like?
I was a very mediocre student. I read the dictionary and thesaurus daily because I had a lot of friends, mind you. No Saeed in the room, please. I didn't do I was in chess club, so I'll say I didn't do almost any extracurricular activities. I did not sports at all because I don't and I can't. And I'm not bitter about that, so don't ask. So.
I won't. All right. If you were a high schooler in 2018, would it be more stressful than when you attended?
Way more.
Yeah. All right. When you look at your students, do you think they're happy?
I don't look at them. Most of them are happy. There are exceptions, obviously. We try to find them, but they're not always as obvious as I'd like them to be.
What kind of challenges do you think students have?
Physical, emotional, digital. Cyberbullying, did that exist when you were kids? Maybe you. To somewhat. Yeah, cyber anything didn't exist. These are new problems that you guys get to deal with. Yay.
A lot more AP.
Yeah, and we had literally one AP in my whole high school, and I didn't take it. You guys have a lot more stressors in your life. College was cheaper and I think easier to get into, less competition.
Okay. What could a student approach you in times of a crisis?
Of course. I hope so. I hope they know to.
Okay. What advice would you give to any struggling student?
Just keep swimming.
Aww. Okay. What issues do you see with how our community or school environment treats or teaches mental health, and what steps can we take to improve or make it more of an open topic?
A little bit of a tangential question. We've made it a lot of progress from a while ago, or from when I was a kid. Definitely, I think we're acknowledging it a lot more, and we're not shaming it quite as much. We have a Gunter now, and 3 or 4 interns every year to try to catch you guys or catch the kids who maybe need catching. What was your question?
What issues do you see with how we treat or teach it still, if there are any, and what steps can we take to improve?
The issues are that we are treating it now, as opposed to when I was a kid. You had to go to the doctor, and it was a big deal, and your parents could be a little bit ashamed of that, so they tended not to take you unless it was exceptionally serious.
Okay. And what would you want your students to take away from your class besides academics?
Oh, besides academics, nothing. It's okay. I went to college in South Dakota. It was a 4-year college. I work with people who went to Stanford. We all make the same amount. They're better people because they went to Stanford, obviously. But it's an education. Whether you go to Davis or Berkeley or Harvard, it's an education. Your networking might be a little different from those two.
And then, are there any final is there any final comment you have regarding mental health that you would like people to know?
Boy, this is the part where improv doesn't help me. Talk to people. Talk to someone, even if it's your friends, your teachers, your counselors, your parents. I know it's hard to talk to parents. I'll say grandparents in there. Find someone, even if it's an online friend or something. So just talk. We are all here to help, I guarantee.
Thank you. And that pretty much concludes it. We're good.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Drive.
Yeah.
Hi. So, how much do you value your physical and mental health?
Me personally?
Yeah.
How much, like a percentage or just in
Yeah, if you
general?
had to maybe put them on like a scale.
Probably not enough. Probably like maybe a 6 or 7.
Do you value your mental health as much as your physical health?
Absolutely.
And can you kind of elaborate or describe what your high school or academic experience was like?
I went to high school like in the late 90s, so it was a while ago. But, it was, and then I went to college after that. But in high school, it was just, it's a lot of pressure just to be, just to fit in and to be part of groups and not to be a geek. I was in the band, and so I was kind of a band geek, but I had friends there. But I actually dealt a lot with depression, like in relationships and stuff, just like kind of unhealthy relationships, I guess, both friendships and a romantic relationship in high school, and I didn't really have the tools to deal with it. There wasn't really any support on campus available to me to help deal with that. So it was kind of hard. Something I just kind of, I guess, tried to adapt to.
So as a high schooler, did you have any resources, or what did you do to cope?
Yeah, I was in tears a lot at school about different situations with, either at home or actually mainly in my relationship. And the teachers would, a couple of teachers, like my band teacher, would talk to me, ask if I was okay, like really being kind and everything. But like that was about it. I didn't really have any other type of like counseling or anything. Like I don't think there was any counseling offered like there is like social workers that are at the campuses now. Like back then, the counselor was just the academic counselor. So, yeah.
And what advice would you give to any student that is struggling right now, whether it be with academic issues or home life?
I definitely think it's important to say something to a trusted adult and to express, it just to not to be ashamed of it, because like too many times it's, like it's almost like a stigma. It's like a problem, like, oh, well, you can't handle it or whatever. There's just so much pressure. But I just feel like students should definitely feel empowered to reach out to trusted adults, whether it's one of their teachers or an administrator at the school or, whatever, and say, hey, are there any programs available to me if I could get some help and talk to someone? I'm really struggling here, which is, it's hard. It's easier said than done. But I feel like as a society, we should definitely support, like, that.
So can you also kind of elaborate and explain what you specialize in?
Yes. So I'll explain what I did before this. I taught students with significant disabilities, like your students here who are in the Moderate to Severe program. I taught over at Oberfeld High School for about 10 years. And then now I'm a program specialist. So what I do is I go to several different school sites and I help kind of mediate when there's issues between like families and the school staff, or if a student needs more services or things like that. Like I come in and like a student in special ed, and I come in and assist, the people at the site with helping the student and their families in some tough situations. So I'm kind of like a problem solver.
And what got you started, or why are you passionate about that?
Well, because I really felt passionate working with my students, because like students with significant disabilities, like I feel like they need a lot of opportunity, to really, get out there and be a part of society. And that after a while, that was like no longer good enough for me. Like I wanted to help more students instead of just my own. I wanted to help a lot more. And so that's why I got into this, because I could help like many different cases, many different students, and expand on that. So it's really helpful.
And what do you feel are some myths or misconceptions about mental health, psychological disorders, or students who maybe are disadvantaged?
I think the misconceptions about mental health and psychological disorders is like only crazy people have them, or like if you take medication, that means that you're like not fit to, do whatever job or go to school or whatever. That that you're nuts, or you're on your meds or whatever. Like there's a lot of like stigma around that. I think it's getting I'm hoping it's getting a little better these days than it used to be. But yeah, and as far as you had another part to that question. You said it was the last part. What was it again?
Or any students who are at disadvantages.
Any students who are disadvantaged, like myths and misconceptions. You know, I guess sometimes students who have disadvantages, there may not be as much expected of them. They might have lowered expectations in the academic setting, or maybe they're treated differently because they don't have the advantages like the secure family or the economic status as other people, so that they're definitely like looked at differently. Not everyone does that, but I think that's still an issue. So.
What would you want high school students to take away from school besides their academics?
Yeah, that's a big one. Unfortunately, I feel since I was in high school versus now, I feel like a lot of the programs that like home economics and like shop classes, like as far as like working on cars or building stuff out of wood, different things like that. Like all that's like not all of it, a lot of it has been like eliminated to focus on academics, and I feel like there's so much more to life than just academics. I mean, academics prepares you in one way, but there's also the practical parts of life. Like, again, yeah, like how to cook a meal, how to balance a checkbook, how to live on your own, take care of yourself, I mean, have a job, like what skills are expected of you, because it's like so different out there in the real world. And I feel like just with all the focus being on academics nowadays, like it's preparing students less and less for the real world, so then when they graduate, it's kind of a shocker. I'm not trying to scare you guys, but no, that's the reality of it. So, yeah.
And if there are any more, what issues do you see with how our community treats or teaches mental health?
I think that it's improved since I was in high school. I think now they have. There's actually mental health therapists and social workers on all the campuses that students are encouraged to utilize. I don't think it's quite as hush-hush as it used to be. Granted, I still though feel like there's still those stigmas. Like we still have a little ways to go as far as just being more of an open and accepting society. Especially in schools, like of students who are different, students who have disabilities, students who have different sexual orientation, students have different sets of friends or whatever. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to be in high school. I can only imagine nowadays.
Do you have any suggestions on steps we can take to improve on that?
Just more education, more awareness, more people talking about it. I mean, I wish that there was, because in my program I worked with students with disabilities, and I was able to actually teach them like social skills curriculum and like, job curriculum and stuff. It's like even like typical kids could use this, just a lot of like even interpersonal skills, things like that. I mean, if there was only like some type of a life skills class, I think all students would love it. Like it's like, wow, this is teaching me how to like pay my bills and how to do all this stuff. I mean, I really think students would love it. That would be a step in the right direction. And then, I mean, that's that part. But then as far as like the mental health part, again, it's just everyone just being more accepting and just more open about it. Because the more quiet we are, it's just like kind of like an internal battle, and it's just very toxic for people. So. Yeah.
Do you have any additional or closing remarks about anything?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's definitely a topic I feel strongly about, though. And that I do hope that we continue as a society to progress in the right direction. Because like stuff that's going on, like school shootings, etc., like it seems like we're kind of not going in the right direction. So, we do have a ways to go. So that's about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.